Guys, what's going on? Hello and welcome to Serial at Midnight. We're talking about Out of Sight, an amazing movie that's just hit 4K, or actually as this video is going up, it's still forthcoming on the 4K Ultra HD format. I got mine pretty early. This is an amazing movie from Steven Soderbergh. That's the guy that directed Sex, Lies, and Videotape, and after this would achieve a next level of fame with his Ocean's 11 trilogy, the three Oceans movies with George Clooney. He keeps working with the same people that he enjoys working with again. But George Clooney is a bank robber. Jennifer Lopez is the agent that's in charge of catching him. And they have a spark, a love connection. It's an opposites attract sort of a thing. And so, you know what? I'm not going to spoil it if you've never seen the movie. It's super sexy. And it's funny. And it's violent. And it's a great... It's all of these things, right? There's a special feature here where they're trying to... The actors are trying to describe it. And they're like, well, it's a comedy, but it's not really a comedy. It's an action. It's like a crime movie, but it's Elmore Leonard is it's based on a novel by Elmore Leonard, which is also Jackie Brown is based on Quentin Tarantino's Jackie Brown is based on an Elmore Leonard novel. And there's an indefinable quality to anything Elmore Leonard did. It's even in his Western work, going back to 50s Westerns. It's even there. But it's this... You like characters that you shouldn't like, and they're funny, but they're not stupid funny. It's not slapstick funny. It's just like, well, that's really quirky. It's the best way to describe it. It's just a quirky crime romance movie. It's all things. And it's got this cool, funky soundtrack. It's sort of a throwback in aesthetic. Soderbergh would do this. I think it maybe culminated with the Ocean's movies, where he's kind of experimenting with editing styles with freeze frames, and just style. There's a very unique style here. Great cast. I'm going to mention Ving Rhames, Don Cheadle, Dennis Farina, Albert Brooks, Steve Zahn is in this as well. And there's I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, there's a Samuel L. Jackson part in here too. It's kind of a secret, but you know what? This movie's been out for almost 25 years. Sidebar. Let me tell you about my theatrical experience with this. But first, how does it look on 4K? Mwah! It looks fantastic. This is one of those movies that shot on film, obviously. I think that it's clear I prefer movies shot on film to movies shot digitally. Anytime you have a 35 millimeter film source, any 4K is going to really bring out the inherent layers and the depth there. And that's the case here. However, Out of Sight is not a particularly attractive movie. Shot in Florida, so sometimes it's sunny, sometimes it's gray. Then they go to Detroit, and it's real gray. They actually deliberately color time it to be gunmetal blue-gray. Which was a choice, but it's not a reference kind of a movie, but that's not the goal of a 4K. The goal of a 4K is to recreate the director's intention, what this is supposed to look like, the closest to that film, when that director turns in that film and it goes to print. That's what the 4K is supposed to look like, the director's vision, and it looks great. The choice of yellow in the prison yards, color. I feel like maybe the use of color in movies now is being lost. I think there's a lot of techniques. Shooting up, he does a lot of shooting, his use of angles and things. Blurring and then pulling focus. There's a scene where George Clooney walks out of a building, you see the back of his head, and then we see what he's looking at. Such great technique. Steven Soderbergh is a master. But great visuals, all the special features that come from the old Blu-ray and those came from the DVD. So these special features have been around since 1998. They're all here. Audio commentary by director Steven Soderbergh and screenwriter Scott Frank. Inside Out of Sight, that's a vintage 1998 making of that runs about 30, I think it's 28 minutes. And it is kind of EPK, kind of electronic press kit, but there's also a lot of depth to it because they talk, again, they're trying to describe what the movie is, but you get to see Clooney being Clooney has a reputation as being a real prankster, so he gets to be goofy. He's showing people his Sexiest Man Alive, People magazine cover. He's like, look, you see that guy? Oh, yeah. And he looks at the camera and goes cross-eyed, stuff like that. It's fun, but you get to kind of get in, like they talk to Elmore Leonard in the documentary, who's not here with us anymore, so I love Elmore Leonard. But let's compare, let's do this really quick. Jackie Brown versus Out of Sight. A lot of people will detract Out of Sight. They'll be like, well, it's just trying to be Jackie Brown. Well, it's adapted from the same writer's material, and he had a distinct tone. Yeah, I'm sure that Jackie Brown's success opened the door for Out of Sight, but they're not really the same thing. And I also want to say that, Out of Sight takes a non-linear approach, as does all of Quentin Tarantino's stuff, but Soderbergh's explaining here that, well, if we told it chronologically and not out of order, he's like, there's a character that you don't meet until 30 minutes into the movie. And that's one of our leads. You can't have that. So you chop it up, you put it in different order, and I love it. I think it succeeds. I would not change a minute of this film. So I saw this movie in 1998 with a friend who had just gotten with this girl. It was his new girlfriend, and they met me at the theater. I was like, I'm going to see Out of Sight. You guys want to come? So they show up. About halfway through the movie, they're like, hey man, we're going to bounce. I was like, what? They're like, yeah, we're just not feeling it. I was like, what? That's how you know. If somebody's not feeling Out of Sight and they leave halfway through, you probably can't have a friendship with them. I mean, that's just that. That's just it, right? That's the end of the line. I have nothing but praise for this movie. I love it so much. I could watch it just over and over. It makes me laugh. The music, like, I bought the soundtrack. I don't have the soundtrack. I was watching this to review this. I was like, I gotta have the soundtrack. This thing is amazing. Now the bass, just that sexy, slinky, like boom, 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 and then like keyboards. It's this indefinable. The score. I was reading about the composer. He's like, I was channeling jazz, Quincy Jones, funk, and I put it all into this mixture, and this is what came out. And it's a great score. And there's great music too. James Brown's here. A lot of good like source music. I'm raving again because I love this movie. These are so easy for me to do when I love the movie. You can always, like, if I'm just like, it's pretty good. It's got a good video. When you can tap into passion, you can't fake that, right? So we talked about the inside, Out of Sight. We talked about the audio commentary. There's deleted scenes and 2 theatrical trailers. I think that's all I got to say about it. You gotta check this movie out if you haven't seen it. If you have seen it, I'm probably preaching to the choir. Steven Soderbergh would never do another movie quite like this. This is one of the only ones. The story of this movie is told in greater detail in the it's the book about Miramax. I'm trying to remember. The guy that wrote Easy Riders, Raging Bulls also wrote a book about the 90s Miramax and Sundance Film Festival. And they really get into Soderbergh. I don't want to say he was lost in the 90s, but between Sex, Lies, and Videotape and the commercial success of this, he was finding what his neck, like he was trying to find himself. And this was kind of the culmination of a certain kind of, it's critically appreciated, but it's also audience appreciated. And then when you get to the Ocean's movies, that's something else. That's just like big popcorn cinema, right? This is still a little indie. And I don't mean that as a bad word, because I love it. It feels like one of the secrets from the cool kids. Like, I made this one for me, and they kind of dug it too. But I guess from now, and then he, like in 2013, he kind of stepped away from movies altogether to focus on TV and experimental stuff. He made a movie on an iPhone. This is peak Soderbergh for what this is, for just like that underground cool atmosphere. So good. Jennifer Lopez, gorgeous, sexy, talented, holds down so much of the movie just with her presence, which is a lot because she was young too. Like, this was 98. This is before this is after Anaconda, but before she was like the it girl. This is a younger Jennifer Lopez that is just starting to come into herself. And this is George Clooney coming out of TV, right? Coming out of ER. He done From Dusk Till Dawn, but again, not yet a big screen name draw. This is a stepping stone. Such a great movie. It's nothing but praise. Nothing but love for Out of Sight. There's no alternate artwork here, but I know you slipcover junkies are going to want to get the early pressing, so you get that slipcover. It's on 4K and on Blu-ray. The special features are all on the Blu-ray. I think the commentary is the audio tracks on the 4K disc, but all the other special features are on the Blu-ray. So I don't know. I give this my highest recommendation. I absolutely love this movie. Again, if you've seen it, you probably know there's an indefinable quality to a certain kind of 90s movie, and this is just dripping with that style. And I have nothing but absolute adoration for it. So Out of Sight on 4K. I'll put a link in the description of this video where you can pre-order it or order it if you see this later. And you will be helping Cereal at Midnight out. We get a little chunk of that. It'd be nice, you know, just let me know in the comments of this video if you like this movie. I love to talk about this stuff. I love to keep the conversation going. I love to share my passion with you guys, and clearly I got a lot of it for this. Wish the guy that left the movie halfway through had the same passion for it that I did, but what are you going to do? Guys, thanks so much. Take care. Until next time, I will catch you later.